So good evening, everyone. Buenas noches. That's what I learned so far. So thank you so much for attending the webinar today. My name is Som Chaudhary. I'm from TBS Education, and I have with myself Professor Shuang Reng, who is joining us all the way from Hong Kong, where she's attending a conference. And so today we will have a let me check what works here. So today we'll have a brief, let's say, discussion on digital sustainability and resilience in supply chain. So I lead the Center of Excellence in TBS Education in Toulouse in France. And my area of interest is all forms of technology, analytics, and sustainability. And I work with Professor Prashanta Dey and Professor Pawan Budhwar, who are both from Aston Business School, UK. And I used to work there 3.5 years ago. And not 3.5 years ago, I was there. And then I also work with Professor Rain, who will be looking at the second part of the presentation. So our collaboration is mainly on various aspects of sustainability, and it is very interdisciplinary because I come from a technology management background. Professor Dey comes from an operations management background. Professor Budhwar comes from an international human resource management background, and Professor Ren comes from sustainability, sustainable HR and diversity, equity, and inclusiveness background. So, so just to start with what we look at, if we look at sustainable supply chains. So first thing is we are looking at is circular economy. And in terms of circular economy, what we are looking at is the small organizations in the supply chain, which are the small and medium-sized enterprises. So the basic, if we look at how circular economy started since 2000 to 2010, and then with the increase in the more awareness about the issues with climate change. So with the Paris Agreement, UN Sustainability Development Goals, to pandemic, and then to the IPCC report earlier in 2021, 2022, that it's a code red for humanity, we find that SMEs, mid-sized organizations, and every organization in the supply chain needs to be low carbon, they need to be responsible, they need to digitize, they need to cut their emissions, they need to be competitive, they need to be resilient, and at the same time, they need to be profitable. So what not we are thinking of at current this stage. If you look at it from the perspective of the SMEs, they have a lot of things to do. Even every organization has a lot of things to do. The basic problem that we are facing is that how can organizations achieve all these things at the same time? It is not something like every single day there is a new regulation coming up and organizations need to do something about it. And it's not easy for any organization, small organization to family businesses to large organizations, to do those things. And which brings us to a very, very difficult issue, that how can organizations put all this at the same time? So there is no one answer to the question, because it is not a like a trick question or not a geopolitical question, but it is about the reality. And the reality is that if organizations leverage Industry 4.0 technologies to achieve sustainability in any form, then what we are finding is that there are challenges. And I can bet you, sir, if you look at this, we did the study in Thailand, Vietnam, India, France, United Kingdom, developing economies in transition, and there are challenges. To use any digital system, if you are looking at data-driven decision making, we are looking at data readiness, we are looking at data management, we are looking at digital and green skills, we are looking at a lot of things that organizations do not necessarily have. Even in the supply chain upstream and the supply chain downstream, if you look at the raw materials, the manufacturers, and the distributors, except the consumers, like, for example, if it is a B2C business, except the consumers, no one is actually tech savvy, or no one has the lot of technology to use, because they don't have that much financial investment. At the end of the day, the key ingredient of any leveraging any industry 4.0 technology, you talk analytics, you talk AI, you talk blockchain, you talk IoT, you talk anything, is about data. That there has to be a minimum amount of data available that can be analyzed. And which brings us to the question that, do organizations actually need industry 4.0 technologies in order to become sustainable, or to optimize their supply chain, optimize their decisions, and at the same time make sure that they are able to comply to the standards and of the regulators. So, which brings us to the new term, digital sustainability, or which is also similar to Industry 5.0, which is a term coined in US, in Europe. But at the same time, digital sustainability is also a term coined, which is like digital technology, when digital technology meets sustainability. That's what I will say. But the problem is that digital sustainability is not a term that had been coined just now. In 2007, digital sustainability was about arts and humanities. The term comes from preservation of digital artifacts. Like if you go to the information and library sciences, it is more about preservation of books and in a digital format. Preserve in a arts and humanities, preservation of digital artifacts so that people can learn from it. So digital sustainability previously was not about achieving economic, social, and environment. Now the interesting part is, just check. So what we are looking at it is that, like, it has multiple interpretations, and from a green IT perspective, it is about making digital technologies lower their carbon emissions, which is not true. They have a lot of carbon emissions, and at the same time, there are barriers, regulatory barriers and moral barriers on digital sustainability. In short, the term is itself a big issue. What it means. So, having looked at all the literature on digital technologies and sustainability and all the barriers, so we came up with a definition, which is purposeful use of technology. Do not use technology if it is not required. Just go by the basic principles and traditional ways if you think it is not useful. Is strategic. That is, whatever you are doing is related to the purpose. The technology you are using is optimal. That means the e-waste generation, that means you are not just using technology to make sustainable decisions, but you are using a technology which itself is efficient, and itself it is it is not e-waste. The e-waste can be recycled and reused. And you are using it in a responsible way that is good for not only your business, but your workers and the society in general. And the idea is, by using the technology, you want to develop capabilities and strategies that focus on economic, environment, and social productivity, which is sustainability, but aligned with the UN SDGs. What we are seeing is that UN Sustainability Development Goals are related to various dimensions of sustainability. So it is extremely important that we look at this, we look at Industry 4.0 technologies, or any technology as such, in achieving one or more of those goals, not just randomly using technology because it is the trend and it is the buzzword. So what we are seeing is that see, if you look at the digital decision support system or a decision support system which uses technology, on the left hand side, you will see that there are a lot of capabilities that are required in order to make the digital decision support system operationalized within an organization. It is not that you can just buy a technology and it will work on its own. You need infrastructure, you need data readiness, you need human resource capabilities, you need the organizational capacity to change and innovate, and financial and capital investment. On the other hand, digital support system can also facilitate circular economy practices, risk management practices, decision making, business process optimization, quality and project management. And all of these can help an organization to become sustainable. This is based on a number of studies we have done in the last 4 years and continue to. What we believe is that digital decision support system needs a lot of capabilities and resources within the organization, but at the same time, it can benefit a number of practices within the organization, and then which can help organizations to achieve sustainability, to monitor their sustainability, and over time to adjust their sustainability in a way that they are always profitable. But the question is that where is resilience here? Because where is resilience? Like, I have not put resilience here. The reason for not putting resilience is that by doing risk management, by making decisions which are objective quickly, by optimizing processes, that is practicing lean management, by doing proper quality checks, you become resilient because of the fact that you are not only trying to be, you are not only trying to be efficient, but also you are trying to make decisions by predicting the future outcomes. So all of these will also help the organizations to become resilient in the case of a crisis, in the case of a disaster, in the case of unknowns, and so on and so forth. So what I say is that the strategy to implement digital systems, this is the basic strategy which we have validated with number of organizations across the world. That in the first phase you capture the data, in the second phase you do you analyze the data to get an overview of what is happening, then you try to understand the data, why something is happening, what changes are necessary, then you try to predict based on the data you have and based on the historical data sets which you have from your competitors, that what can happen in the future, and then based on level 1 to level 4, you come at a position where your ability to make changes, ability to prescribe changes and monitor them over time. But the critical point here is data. Without the level 1, there is no level 2, 3, 4, 5. So when we say that organizations use AI, organizations use business analytics, organizations use blockchain, without level 1, there is no level 2. And without level 2, there is no level 3. So in this context, what we have found is that this is the critical asset, and SMEs in a supply chain lack this because they do not have a proper data management policy. They do not have a proper data management practices, and their data is always in an ad hoc, always stored in an ad hoc manner. Digitization doesn't mean good data management. Digitization means that you have technologies in hand in order to automate processes. That does not correspond to having good data management practices. In this context, the data we have proposed a data management framework for organizations in any part and any tier of the supply chain. So the idea for the organizations here is basically to start with data assessment, that understand what data you have, understand what data you do not have. And for this, you go to the basics of business life cycle analysis. And then once you have got, like, understand that what data you have, then you can actually look at that how can you create a data repository, how should you store the data, that is in a cloud storage or IoT platforms that are available. Then once you have stored the data, we say that you go to the level 2, where you clean the data. You clean the data to understand the relationships between various attributes of data, various sources of data, which will help you to define the context of the business cases, that how you can use the data. By depending on how you can use the data, you decide the tools or the analysis you need. Sometimes the analysis can be visualization, sometimes the analysis can be very simplified graphs, or sometimes the analysis can be actually require advanced predictive modeling. And after all this, you periodically review what data you are using, what data you have, what data you don't have, and then again go back to the plan, to the step 1, which is here, and update your data assessment report. The thing is that this is a very simple way by which any organization within the supply chain can get hold of their data and make sure that they put it in a way useful and that can be analyzed. It is not something that they can do in one day, but it will take months to gather the data. The important part is here. Once they understand the context of the data, then it becomes easy to know how you can use it, how you can drive the data for decision making. Now, based on that, in the second part, when we are looking at the analytics side of things, the analytics should be purpose-driven analytics. Again, this is based on the studies that we have done in different countries, that while utilizing data, there are 4 things required. First is the efficiency and performance analytics, that how your organization is performing in terms of your carbon efficiency, energy efficiency, resource efficiency, and business performance in terms of your profitability. Based on this, you can actually understand what changes are required and why. Once you understand what changes are required and why, predictive analytics can be used to predict that if those changes were made, then what are the likely outcomes? And based on those, the organizations can decide whether they move forward or whether they don't move forward. The point here is that we have to understand that even before we come here, I can say you that if there are 90% of the world businesses are SMEs, there may be only 5% of the SMEs who may be doing all these steps. The problem is that SMEs do not have a proper data management and data organization policy, which makes it difficult even to start at number 3, that compare the efficiency and performance analytics. So again, it is just saying that I will have digital sustainability doesn't mean we will have digital sustainability. So here I point out one of the things is that when we are talking about AI usage in business and specifically the supply chain, what we are looking at are automators, deciders, recommenders, illuminators, evaluators. These are the different types of AI. And like when the AI can make a decision, and you can say that for this, you need, of course, data. But if assuming that all the data organizations have, they can use artificial intelligence for green supplier selection. They can use artificial intelligence to communicate with their supply chain partner. They can use artificial intelligence to understand where the machines, or the predictive maintenance of the machines, in the sense that predict when the machines need to be replaced or changed. They can use that in order to understand how the supply chain can be optimized. And last but not the least, they can use different scenarios, or which we call at simple simulation modeling, where they can understand the risks and rewards of various processes that are in place. The point is that this is the AI which is just predictive. Okay, if we talk digital sustainability, this is just predictive AI, nothing else. So we have something called as generative AI. You have all heard about it. ChatGPT. What else we have? We have ChatGPT, we have Bard, we have Llama, we have ImageMind. So like everyone knows what ChatGPT can do. Everyone knows that what generative AI can do. So my question here, there are many people here. I just want to, before moving forward, I just want to ask you a question. Is that, do you think generative AI is a good thing for organizations or a bad thing? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Generative AI, is it a good thing for the organizations or a bad thing? No, I say generative artificial intelligence is a people say it's a double-edged sword, but I changed the question. I simply asked binary. Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it has like two different points of view, because there is like a ethics, no, related with the decision making. So we have to balance and to compare. Maybe in terms of the responsibility, for example, I have to take a decision. Artificial intelligence is not going to be accountable for the decision. The human will be accountable for the decision also.
Exactly.
I cannot just pass through the responsibility to the artificial intelligence for the bad things, no?
Okay. Absolutely. So I'm just giving you one example just to explain the long story short. Okay. So this is a tool, artificial intelligence, generative AI. It is a free tool, right? It will create a presentation for you in the next 30 seconds. Okay. And the presentation will be on. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I will just create a presentation, create a presentation about, let's say, sustainability. No, I'm not here on in metaverse. Now it is such a new topic that even half of us will be like difficult to answer. Okay, so let's enter. Let's see what it does. Okay, so it has created a very interesting list of agenda. Continue. It will create a presentation for you. It will create the presentation with image for you, and it will actually do the presentation in a story, and it can do that. It can do this presentation even better than I can actually teach the students, and I'm being honest about it. So if this data comes from the internet and generative AI uses the data which is already in your organization, then there is a win-win situation, because you know your data and and that's where we go to the data management part of it. If it is your data and generative AI works on your data and then generates something, even your, let's say, sustainability audit, then it's a win-win. There is no ethics, there is no bias, because it's your data. So if I just, people who are online, so it gives welcome to the metaverse, very nice. Then it gives what is sustainability in metaverse, why is sustainability important in the metaverse, sustainability design in the metaverse, sustainability behavior in the metaverse. And I can tell you whatever they have written is right, because I have checked it. Okay, but how long will it take? 30 seconds, right? How long will for us to take?
1 hour at least.
Whatever it is, this is the part where I basically stop and I hand over to my colleague, Professor Xuan Ren, for the next stage of the presentation, which will be on the work on generative AI that she has been doing with Professor Lee.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
That's great. I'm so delighted to join you here today and also see your enthusiasm for the topic that we have been working on. I'm professor of human resource management at Queen's Management School, Queen's University Belfast. So my research area is at the intersection of sustainability, human resource management, and digitalization. I'm also currently the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Belongingness. And well, for these roles, generative AI has also plays a very important, but underexplored implications that I would like to explore further. I'm the editor-in-chief of British Journal of Management, which I would also like to briefly mention to you about it in relation to the topic. It is the official journal of British Academy of Management. Now, Saul has illustrated what generative AI is and what it all means to supply chain operation management and more broadly, our work. From a human aspect, what it all means to sustainable human resource management. Now, this is an important question people start to ask, but it's also a very difficult one because sustainable human resource management is still an evolving concept. It is the organization's endeavor to integrate the strategic human resource management with the organization's imperative of sustainability. So here in these slides, we provided our working definition of sustainable human resource management, which refers to systems, practices, and policies that ensure the supply of a sustained workforce while also considering the economic, social, and environmental impact of these practices. So this working definition is quite comprehensive to embed the various conceptualizations of sustainable human resource management in the field. Basically, there are two elements. One is the supply of the workforce in a sustained way. And the second is the implications of what organizations' HR does in relation to SDG, for example, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. This provides us with a general framework when we start to ask ourselves what the generative AI means for sustainable human resource management and vice versa. But first thing first, our point of departure within the recent advancement of generative AI is the two should be closely involved in order to enabling organizations to transform towards sustainable development. Why am I saying so? Well, our research shows that generative AI can generate innovative ideas that are not yet considered by HR professionals alone. Here I provide two quick examples. So for example, generative AI can stimulate different scenarios, solutions, and outcomes to complex sustainability challenges. So those capabilities could help organizations explore different sustainability strategies in a risk-free environment and make informed decisions. It also helped to map supply chain, derive current sustainability performance, and identify issues and challenges, setting targets. The other way that generative AI could help organizations to transform their HR systems towards sustainability, and more generally, to transform organizations towards sustainable development, is it allows organizations to create personalized sustainability trainings or initiatives tailored to the specific needs of organizations' internal as well as external stakeholders' needs. So for example, by analyzing and gathering large amount of data related to employee commuting routines or waste management habits, generative AI could suggest, personalized initiatives to encourage employees to take more sustainable modes of transportation. It could also provide the real-time feedback on the business cases, help organizations to plan, implement, and evaluate those improvement projects. So these are our overall positioning on sustainable human resource management and generative AI. Now, if we start to look at the first element of sustainable human resource management, which is really about ensuring the supply of sustained workforce, generative AI could strengthen the collective capability and could also have the potential to better meet workforce needs and enhance productivity. How could this be possible? Well, one way is to provide real-time feedback on how job responsibilities can be undertaken in a more sustainable way. It could also strengthen the collective capabilities, for example, by helping organizations to embed the sustainability-oriented organizational culture at the more fundamental level. In addition, generative AI could automate routine tasks, reduce bias in selection and performance evaluations with more objective data and data collected from multiple sources to enhance efficiency. It could also assist in analyze organization sustainability-related performance, engagement, and ultimately satisfaction. So the next slide provides a classification of what we see future job market or future employment would be like with the impact of generative AI, with the current or the future digitalization era. Perhaps we would no longer have the traditional job titles, but more importantly, for organizations to manage those digitalization opportunities as well as challenges, we will have three types of job categories. The first one, we call it trainers. Their responsibilities are developing, so for example, machine learning capabilities, identify data sources to train the AI. Here in this category, the reliability and performance of AI systems should be their core. The second job category is what we call explainers. Their job responsibilities concern mainly understanding and interpreting the AI output, assessing the reliability and how they are being generated. Here in this category, trustworthy of AI-based decision-making is the core. And the third category, we call them sustainers. So their job responsibilities relate mainly to purposeful, effective, and fair usage of AI to elevate reputational risk, developing AI governance structures. At the core is the ethical, moral, and robustness of AI-based decision-making. So this is the first element of sustainable human resource management. Now, the second element, which relates squarely related to the SDGs. Overall, we would anticipate generative AI to have at least four main implications. The first one is AI, generative AI can and should provide evidence-based guidance to organizations in terms of where and how to get support from all levels, as well as areas of organizations, to overcome the entrenched norms and resistance to sustainability. Because either sustainable human resource management or digital sustainability, as Sun just explained, the key challenge in achieving the outspread implications is that it requires a new multi-purpose model of organizational effectiveness that perhaps conflict with the traditional market-oriented model. But generative AI has the capability to overcome those previous norms and resistance to change. The second anticipation is generative AI can and should select optimal options when undertaking both intra-organizational functions and inter-organizational activities. The third is developing the decision support system, essential to transform organizational value chain at strategic planning and operational level, which I'm going to explain more in details shortly. And the fourthly is about reporting, sustainability reporting with the data and with the technology capabilities of generative AI. It would assist in this element. Now, when it comes down to the integration of generative AI, sustainable human resource management, supply chain, etc., generative AI provides the potentials for organizations to better integrate their sustainable practices, monitor them, implement them, and evaluate across the whole value chain. As shown in this diagram, it facilitates developing the decision support systems that are essential to transform organizations' value chain at strategic planning and operational levels through various sustainability practices. The decision support systems designed using the generative AI will facilitate sustainable HRM to capture data to select optimal options when undertaking all like manpower planning, training needs identification, fostering organizational culture, enhancing employee well-being, as well as inter-organizational capabilities, such as promoting sustainability initiative in a more collective way with organizations. Now, these are very, very complex tasks, but could be accomplished with the support of generative AI on coordinated actions rather than individual functions. So if we reflect on all those unique opportunities as well as challenges generative AI brings to our field from a human resource management perspectives, as researchers as well as professionals, we're very excited about a number of areas that this would create for organizations in terms of research, in terms of policy for the government and society as a whole. So those future opportunities are captured here in this diagram, where we see all those opportunities could occur at various levels. So for example, at the structure process of the organizations, at the technology culture level, at the culture level, it would also bring implications for how we could ensure building a more inclusive workforce so that sustainability matters to everyone, not only those large organizations or those group of employees or workers who have better access to sustainability resources. It also requires a better, a more coordinated stakeholder management, both within the organization as well as outside. Now we need to have a more forward thinking in terms of what it all means to the skill set. We identified 3 job categories. What are the specific skill sets needed for each of those skill sets? We also want to bring an international dimensions, because generative AI is not just constrained to one particular country or geographic locations. An international or comparative lens is needed to delve deeper into the sustainable HRM generative AI nexus through various institutional contexts. So for example, there has been research showing that there are certain countries that are likely to be most affected by the generative AI versus the least affected. So we are very dedicated to understand more how and why this would happen. Otherwise, income inequality and social polarization would become an issue, and which would ultimately undermine sustainability efforts if they are not accompanied appropriately with policies and governance for generative AI. I'm conscious of the time, so last but not least, I just want to list a number of the key research projects Sun and I, as well as Professor Hawa and Professor Day have been working on. The first one is related to legitimacy. Now, we have been talking about generative AI, sustainability, digitalization, etc. But however, shall we stop and pause and ask ourselves, are all those legitimate? In other words, have they gained the widespread adoption, trust, and acceptance, not only by the organizations, their employees, but the societies as a whole? If so, how can organizations better communicate with these various stakeholder groups in order to gain wider acceptance, wider legitimacy? The other work we have been undertaking is to understand more what specific SDGs digitalization has impact, and how or which specific digital technologies could help to address those SDGs. Because data sits at the core of generative AI, we also are working to understand a bit more about how organizations can utilize data for sustainability across the value chain, and what are the boundary conditions. We mentioned about the decision-making, the informed decision-making process facilitated by the generative AI. But how digital decision support systems should be designed to further help organizations in their sustainability journey. This is another area that we see great potentials. Now, beyond the organizational boundaries, we see that the regulations related to digital sustainability or generative AI are still evolving. Therefore, our next project is also to look at how and which regulations can further promote digital sustainability. let aside the technology part. When we think about the sustainability, when we think about the responsibility of organizations or employees as the civil citizens, there is certainly a moral element. So the moral barriers should constitute an important element when we think about digital sustainability research and practice. So one of the current projects we've been working on is how managers can integrate risk management and moral frameworks to make sustainability-oriented decisions and innovations. So, last thing but not least, for people who are very interested on the topic, I would strongly recommend you work on the areas, because at least if I put my editor-in-chief hat on myself, I see great potentials in this field. British Journal of Management is actually having a current call for special issue, especially related to circular economy for a pathway to net zero. And contest for this debate. The deadline for submission to this special issue is January the 10th, 2024. So I do look forward to receiving more submissions from you if you are interested. I'll hand over to Sun.
Okay. Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. So thank you so much from both of us for listening to our presentation. So I think we are good in time because we started 10 minutes late. So I will just say that. Thank you so much. I will now close the presentation. And if you have any questions for us, we will be more than happy to answer for you. Yes.
When you were talking about digital sustainability, I got the impression that it was only for non-profit organization because of the 4 or 5 requirements that you mentioned. Can you make us an example of a real capital company that uses digital sustainability?
Real capital company.
Yes, because I think about when you mentioned the 5 principles, that it was like a strategy. Those 5 requirements. I thought about many cases about non-profit organizations, but for-profit organizations. So I will say this one, right? This one definition. Okay. So let me share the screen again and share the definition. So yeah, you are talking about this definition, right? So for-profit organization. So the question is that there are 4 definitions of digital sustainability which are available in the literature, which is on digital artifact preservation, then they have said about digital book preservation, and then they have talked about in green IT, developing technologies that are very green. That means they have low carbon emissions. So we integrated those, and currently they are saying they're industry 4.0 and sustainability. So we integrated those and came with this definition. What we find now is that's why we said there is a misinterpretation of digital sustainability. We cannot claim that any of the organizations are using each one of these. So what I can say, I can give an example where organizations are using industry 4.0 to develop capabilities that will help them to improve their economic performance and environmental performance, but they are not necessarily purposeful, strategic, optimal, and responsible. That is the problem. So there are organizations which are doing one or the other. we don't have an example where organizations are doing all the good things. And why we don't have example, I can tell you that because that organizations, if you look at every organization or SME or even mid-size, they are financial, their main thing is survival. For survival, they need money. You cannot be a philosopher and say that the thing, so they need survival. So
But for example, I'm not sure who said that. I thought that it was Porter, share value. That it was like creating value for the company at the same time as doing the right thing.
that is a very, very good point. But I will say that, you are right, creating value for the company. Companies are trying to do that, but the problem is that they also have to survive. They also have to economically viable, right? So the question, so the problem is that which is the biggest issue, and my colleague Professor Ren said that one of the things is that there is no regulatory guidance on this. See, in green transition you have ESG audits. I don't know audits. In digital transition, which audit you have got? No audits. No one audits that. People say that, are you digital? Okay, what does digital mean? So I think the problem is that in one hand we have a lot of regulations and audits. In other hand, digital, we have nothing. And that's where the problem is, that it is a glass is half empty and the other glass is half full.
Okay, but if I have to think about a industry that probably is close, I don't know if that close is a utility company. So telcos, for example, or maybe someone that have pipelines like gas, but I'm not sure how to make that or make a use of digital sustainability.
Yeah. Because if you're looking at the oil and gas,
Mhm.
in that case, the digital utility will come from a part which is what I say is that they have their own technologies in place, which is more about process optimization. But in an oil and gas company, the way digital sustainability will work is very different to what we will see in a manufacturing company. So that's why we say first is context dependent. The context is important. So it is no one size fit. So not one size fit all. That is what we are suggesting. But again, that's what we said, that if it is context dependent, then the oil and gas company, in the oil and gas organization, it is across the supply chain, because the supply chain has many small organizations and a big organization as well. So across the supply chain, how can you achieve digital sustainability? Just because the top company or the parent company is digitally active does not mean that the supply chain is digitally sustainable. It is just the organization level sustainability, not the whole supply chain. That's what our view is. So, Professor Ren, do you want to add something?
Yeah, just want to, if I understand the questions correctly, so it's about the utilization of generative AI, digital sustainability in the for-profit as well as non-profit context, right?
Yes.
So, well, I mean, I could understand where the questions come from, because most of the debate seems to be in the context of for-profit sectors. However, what I could add is that there are practices that are going on in the non-profit organizational context. Well, I mean, the digital sustainability could occur in different contexts, as well as there are different business models. So whether the organization is for profit or not is not the precondition for digital sustainability. If we think about nonprofit organizations, they are institutional realities, which has a very specific organizational form, and they are institutionally separated from our government. And their aim is to, represent the social utility objective. So these are their specific and unique aims and natures. Often when we think about, the digital transformations, we tend to go to those for profit, largely perhaps because of their select resources and their advantages in terms of the asset, etc. However, for the for the generative AI, if we think about, hey, what is uniqueness of generative AI compared to the traditional AI? Perhaps it is the global scope, perhaps its affordability, perhaps it is, the international operations. So all those provides opportunities for the non-profit organizations to engage in digital transformations. So therefore, we believe the digital sustainability, this discourse applies to various sectors, various types of organizations. Oh, so this is something that I want to add to Søren's feedback.
Okay, any more questions do you have? No? The final thing I would add is that because the digital sustainability, the word has various meanings, and this word has been used in interpretations have been very different. So we go back to the first thing, is that how legitimate is the use of digital technologies to achieve sustainability? That's the first question that any organization should be asking. And personally, based on what research we have been doing, we believe that generative AI will change the way we think about AI. So previously AI was machine learning, AI was deep learning, AI was to understand statistics. Now it is AI, generative AI. If you look at it, has become AI is all about having the right data. If you have the data, anything you can do, just DDI model. It is not difficult to operationalize. It is very simple. And I showed you what a app can do on metaverse and sustainability. If that is your data and you have that AI, and then you can actually do whatever you want, and it is not expensive. The only thing is that at the end of the day, where I started was about the data, and with that data you can do everything. But then the question becomes that purposefully, is that legitimate? Is that something you need? If you need, excellent. If you don't need, then you shouldn't use it, because maybe you don't need it. So that is my final conclusion. I will let Professor Rein give her final thoughts.
Oh, thanks, Søren. I think we have, discussed quite broadly and a lot about generative AI, supply chains, and human resource management. So the final thought, perhaps I could conclude by relating back to the questions that the audience just had. I think we just need to be more innovative and think out of the box when it comes down to, hey, what generative AI would bring, what are the disruptions, rather than just seeing them as disruptions. Maybe we'll see them as opportunities, and those opportunities are manifested at different levels and different dimensions. So if I could capture what we have discussed about the transformation, the digital transformations, there are at least 3 elements that I want to conclude. One is really about generative AI, digital sustainable organizations change. So in this dimension, it involves all the business elements that we discussed. The other one is the digital process. That is really about involvement of business process in the digitalizations. So here, the reliability of the data, the storage of the data, the ethics related to data management becomes relevant. The other, I would capture them as digital resource. That is really about the involvement of products and services as well as the business functions such as human resource management. Those all provides organizations with a digital resource. So if you go back to the Potter's strategic management, the classic framework, this could provide organizations with unique competitive advantage. Last thing last is the digital interaction, which concerns the involvement of key relationships, both within and outside the organizations. Again, you could think about the stakeholder management that we mentioned. So I would stop here.
Okay, so thank you so much for joining us so early in the morning, because I think it's 8 o'clock now at your end.
Yes, 8 a.m.
Because I know that you just reached last night after a long trip from so I hope you're not too jet lagged. I really thank you for joining us. And so yeah, so that's it for now. Thank you so much.
No, I'm really delighted to share my research with everyone here, and I hope to see everyone again next time in a function like that. And certainly for those who are interested on circular economy, digitalization, sustainability, we would love to have your input and submissions in the journal.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. So. Yep. This one? This one, right one.